This one is from Andy from
San Diego.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you want to read your own question?
So I have a very dear friend who has a daughter named Kira.
Okay.
And Kira is about to graduate from high school.
All right.
So I was wondering if you fellas could provide her some financial advice and some for other graduates as they are about to embark on the rest of their lives. What would you tell
High school
somebody?
or
Yeah,
college? High school.
High school.
High school.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So this is so, but you get them like real early on.
Yeah.
There's so much that someone graduating from high school, I think, needs to learn in real simple terms. Budgeting is one, right? Looking at credit and debt and what really that means. FICO scores. Why is that important? Why it's not important? Or what you should do to make sure that you don't fall into certain traps that maybe a lot of people fell into that didn't have just proper personal finance information. Of course, the power of compounding is always really important too, to look at, if they save $10 a month, and then they increase that to $20, $30, $50, $100 a month, and they start at 18 years of age. What could that grow to? That's really powerful things. So I think I would just start real, at the basic level in our world, but I would say that's fairly advanced in the real world. Where you look at people in their 50s and 60s that still don't understand the concept of budgeting or understanding, hey, spend a little bit less than what you make or pay yourself first or, things like that. I think that's where I would go and maybe just have a simple type conversation in saying, here's the ABCs of what you should be taking a look at. Mm-hmm. My sister, for instance, was when she got her first job, she's a registered nurse in Minneapolis. And I ran a spreadsheet because we did this in some sort of, I forget, some training. And I've seen it in books now with like Rick Ellerman and things like that, like Jack and Jill. If they started saving, $1,000 a year, and they started at 18, but then Bill and Susan started at 30, and then so and so started at 50 to get to a certain dollar figure. Mm-hmm. The same how much more that each couple would have to save.
Right.
So I kind of went through that example with her, and I said, if you maxed out your a Roth IRA of, I forget the contribution limits back then, by the time, you could save for 20 years and you would be a millionaire by the time you're 60, mm-hmm. right? So that motivated her. So then she's like, "Oh, I'm done with my plan because you told me all I had to do is save this
for 20 years."
And I was like, "No, don't stop.
Yeah, keep going.
Keep going." Right? So
yeah, and I think I agree with everything you said.
Thank you.
And I'm going to add maybe a couple practical things. I think a lot of high schoolers and college-age kids, they don't really quite understand what credit is and how it works. And I would say this, if you can't pay cash for something, then don't do it. Mm-hmm. If you want to use a credit card to build your credit and FICO score, and that's okay, but just make sure you can pay off that credit card when the bill comes each month, because that's where people get into trouble. So that'd be one thing. Mm-hmm. The second thing I would say is, we know that about half of all Americans can't even afford a $500 car repair.
Right.
So work towards getting $500 to $1,000 emergency funds as kind of a starting point. You want to add to it as time goes, but be responsible with credit, have an emergency fund, and then start investing to the extent that you can because of the compounding of money. And it is pretty amazing. And I think a good lesson for young people is to think about whatever you're making, try to get up to, not immediately, but over time, get up to 10% of your salary going into savings, and then 15%. And then
net or gross?
Gross. Then 15, and then even 20. 20 would be sort of the gold standard.
Yeah.
Right? If you're making $50,000.
Sabatier says 75%.
Yeah, well, then great. You'd be
when I hear
if
you
you can
talk,
get started early enough to be able to save 75%, yeah, you'll be a millionaire by 40.
But it's like, when you said that, it's like, just make if you can't afford it in cash, don't put it on your credit card. I remember my dad saying that to me. And I was like, Dad, if I had the cash, I wouldn't use the credit card.
Right.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Right.
Right? And then now you kind of get a little bit older. You're like, yeah, I guess that makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
Full circle.
What I mean?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I think it's why people like Dave Ramsey do well, because so many young people get in trouble with credit.
Well, Dave Ramsey does well because he sells very high commissionable products.
Well, there's that
and he
too.
preys on the people.
Well,
I got one more question.
Okay.
Would you suggest somebody that is just getting out of high school, if they don't already have one, should they open a Roth IRA like right away if they've got earned income?
Yes,
I would say yes.
If they, but again, it's qualifying, right? Because they may need the funds for college,
Right.
Right. So it's probably not necessarily for everybody.
But even
But they would
if
have
you can
access
put
to it.
$10 into it, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then you
$10
always have
per
access.
paycheck.
You always have access to the money, so it doesn't hurt.
You do on a contribution,
Right,
You can
so
always take the
it wouldn't
money
blow
out.
you up. So
Yeah.
if you put in X amount into a Roth IRA, and then let's say two years later you need the money, I mean, it's probably not the best place to go, but if you needed it, you got it.
Yeah, and by the way, so you can pull out the contribution. You
Yep.
just can't pull out the earnings,
Right, yeah.
and growth.
So
and if you're
Kira,
putting $10 in,
Yeah,
there's not going to be a ton of growth. So
No,
I think you're good.
50 cents.
so Kira should basically watch out for her future self. That would be
Yeah, I would take a picture and put like a wig on it. Right, put some
Or
wrinkles
there's-
on her face.
There's programs that you can
Yeah.
age yourself
Yeah, just pretend you're 65
and see.
and say, I'm ready to retire.
And do a picture where you're really sad, so you
Yeah,
don't want to
you're
be that
sad and
one.
broke.
And then a happy one,
Right,
Where you look,
where
you look younger.
Yeah, you look like
happy.
you're 35
Yeah.
and living in a mansion.
Thank you guys for such wonderful advice.